Welcome to those who are just joining us. We appreciate you. So Impec Group, this webinar is presented by our Workplace and CRE Technology Services, which provides world-class solutions and strategic direction to corporate real estate, Global 2K, to resolve their business needs and pain points through technology. So speaking of which, we're going to address some of those organizational and change management pain points today. Leading today's webinar on change management is Ray Lepine Jr., who is Director of Workplace Technology Advisory. So as part of the Impec team, Ray helps drive clients' positive employee experiences by delivering effective workplace solutions and CRE technology. Ray, you've held a number of leadership roles throughout the field of corporate facilities and project management, from banking, retail, utility industries. You hold the CFM designation from IFMA. We're so pleased to have you join us with your experience. Thank you.
Well, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
And joining Ray is Corinne Murry, VP of Workplace Strategy and Cultural Transformation, who's recently joined Impec Group. We're so pleased to have you here. So Corinne guides companies and their workplace decision makers as they take on near-term and long-term challenges about the future of work in the post-pandemic era by rethinking how we define productivity and effectiveness. So prior to Impec Group, Corinne, you also have extensive experience having worked with RXR Realty, WeWork, Gensler, American Express, CBRE, and more. So thank you both. We are really excited to have both sides of the change management conversation today.
Happy to be here. Thanks.
Over to you.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. As Alex said, my name is Corinne Murry. And with me is my colleague, Ray. We are going to be talking you through how the principles of change management can really merge into workplace technology. Change management, as many of us in my little corner of the universe know, is a really complex and sort of ever evolving thing, because it's about people's needs, people's information, and understanding of things it's never a finite situation that you're dealing with. And so it really means being responsive and understanding to the group of people that you are trying to bring from point A to point B. What I really wanted to talk through first, so that way we can all level set, is really just defining what change management is. And for me, change management has always been about sharing information, not to just push the information out the way that like an email sends you an update about, what your flight status might be. That is communication. That's just pushing information to you. Whereas change management is sending you information about something that you might not have been anticipating, so that way you can change your own behavior. So, sticking with the airline analogy, let's just say that a huge storm happened and you're actually changing airports. So I'm based in New York. Maybe instead of being at JFK, I'm being redirected to LaGuardia. So my airline would need to go through a lot of extra steps in very minute detail to say, okay, we know that we told you this, but now you're going to be over here, and here are the 7 different things that we need you to do to make sure that you still get onto this flight very successfully and get to your destination with as little hiccups as possible. So the real difference between, let's say, just communications in general and change management is there a behavior change that is included? If there's behavior change that's included, it's change management. If it's just, hey, this is the update and you get to keep going on as business as usual, that's communications. And the nuance in that is really important, because change is hard. Humans are just naturally wired to not adapt to change very, very easily. And so that's why we really need sort of, in a way, like triage messaging or, crisis communications kind of messaging, because it is getting things down to the most granular bit, because you don't necessarily know what every single person is going to what's going to resonate with each individual person. So you want to give all the details, because the way that Ray might receive information is vastly different than how I might, and how Alex, the voice that you heard prior, might be hearing things. So it's really crucial to understand that people absorb information in different ways, and the level of detail you provide is really crucial, because not just to be thorough, but because it gives a bunch of different people with a bunch of different perspectives and biases the opportunity to move along the path with you. And so I'd mentioned, crisis comms and triage messaging and things like that. That's usually because they're the ones that are standing in front of disgruntled or angry or stressed out people. And those are the ones that need the most guiding and most direction as changes occur. So it's a very, there are a lot of different skills that can slide in and out of being very useful and very powerful within the world of change management. So a lot of roads can lead to a really successful change manager or change team. So there's many, many ways to skin that cat. So I don't want anyone to feel like, oh, I'm just in communication, so this means this isn't for me. Change management can be learned by everyone. And so now that we've talked a little bit through what the definition of change management is, we wanted to just ask you all that are here, how many of you have implemented change management along with tech implementations in your company, just to understand, who've had a couple of trips around the block, who've been to a couple of rodeos, and who are the new folks here that are here to really learn, because we're happy to see those who have, and encourage those of you who this is new to really understand how this can be implemented in the future.
Thanks, Corinne. This is Alex. So for the audience, in your chat window, you should see the poll. We would love to hear from you. If yes, no, occasionally doesn't quite cover it, you're also welcome to share more details in the chat window, as well as any questions you might have for Ray and Corinne. So occasionally, so that's good.
Yeah.
Better than no, never, right?
Yep.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll, but if you didn't get a chance, again, go ahead and enter in the chat window. We'd love to hear your response.
Okay. Great.
Cool.
So pretty even split, which is, please, like Alex was saying, add commentary in the chats. Would be curious to understand what were the circumstances that those of you who said occasionally, what were the implications of those larger initiatives that made sense for change management to be a part of it? And those who said no, we'd be curious to know, is it because the scope was so small, or because, this was never really a new opportunity that you considered to merge with your tech implementation? So again, context is king. So we'd love to hear more about why and what informed your answers. And as we go on, we'll just keep talking about, really what the importance of change management, or really the benefit of adding change management to tech really is. So Ray, I'll hand it over to you and just pepper some stuff in as we go.
Sure, perfect. So it looks like we got a good mix of those who have and have not utilized it, and hopefully we'll be able to provide you some insights to show you the value of using it more in the future, because we definitely feel like there's more value to it. Let's move on to understanding the importance of change management in tech implementations. One of the things I wanted to fall back on in Corinne's message when she spoke earlier is, and I learned this a long time ago, change management is really a science. If anybody wants to do some research and just Google change management, you'll see there is a definite science behind it. It's, as Corinne said, it's not just, better communication or anything like that. There's processes, there's different theories out there of how to do it. So just go out there and take a look, and I think you'll be surprised. Well,
what'll be funny for those of you that this is new to, one of the change management theories that Ray is mentioning is actually based on the 5 stages of grief. So, the denial, all the stuff we think about, and just like, are we in denial in our own personal lives? Like, that's actually a model for how change management operates.
Exactly. And we're trying to apply it to technology implementation today, but it can be applied to any major change, organizational change, personal change, whatever the change may be. Yeah. So let's start off with a statistic that I think will surprise you. At least it did for me when I discovered it. According to Gartner and McKinsey, technology implementation failure rates are between 70 and 75%. Now, I had to go back and do more research, and I found some other sources, and they all fall about to same percentage. So initially I thought it was way too high, obviously, but as I began to think deeper about it and recalling some of the client horror stories that we face when they bring us on board for tech implementations that have failed, the number actually started to make a little more sense to me. So let's peel the onion back to find out what the primary reason of those failures are. We find that it's getting, the major reason in all the studies and all the statistics is the major reason is getting users to adopt the new technology. It's not the technology itself. I'm gonna give you an example. It just happened this week. We have a client that engaged us to do a gap analysis on a tech failure that they experienced to the extent where they actually had to revert back to their legacy software. They couldn't go forward with the implementation. That's how bad it was. And they came to us, they said, we know we have peer companies that we know use this software successfully. So we really feel like it is the user adoption problem. And the first question, of course, I came back with was, did you have a change management resource and a change management plan and a methodology when they rolled it out? And of course, the answer was no. So I said, okay, well, I think your assumption of that it is user adoption is going to be pretty valid, but we'll obviously do the study and find out and to validate that. But again, they didn't have anything. It was throw the technology over the wall and barrel through, and it just failed miserably. Yeah. So let's talk about some of the factors that make user adoption so difficult. And again, getting back to one of the reasons why that failure rate is so high is because user adoption is the most difficult issue to overcome. I think, Corinne, you agree with that, especially all the things you said earlier.
Yeah, and I think even like following on to that even more is, user adoption on the back end, or, once we arrive, that's a challenge, but we can't only put the spotlight on, okay, we've done this deployment and now people aren't using it. We need to go rewind all the way back to the beginning, not even at the point where we've purchased and signed on the dotted line of we're purchasing this new tech. There needs to be clear vision for why we're doing this thing in the first place. And so that's like, what's the North Star? What's the reason for purchasing this new piece of technology? What's the reasoning behind it? How does it communicate with all the other platforms that we use? How does it communicate with the other teams that we partner with? So this can really, there are a lot of fractal pieces to this that contribute to that user adoption and, actual, adaptation down at the very end. But, I want to be mindful of just getting people to use it at the very end is not really we don't want to spoon feed and sort of force people into, okay, it's here, we're urging you to now use it. We need to remember that, the people that we're asking to use these things are professionals and are experts in whatever it is that their job requires. So we should be able to, at the very beginning, outline this scope for them and, really take them along for the journey. One of the sort of shadow issues with change management in general is that sometimes the information that gets shared is a little militaristic in that it's things are treated as like you're on a need to know basis. But that becomes a really icky feeling when you are one of the end users of like, well, what do you mean? Why can't I just hear or see the full picture? So that way I understand why this happened in the first place. So there's a really interesting sort of human centeredness that needs to be considered through all of this. Making sure that the average user of this tech is really not just informed of stuff along the way, but really included in. There's a difference between informing someone and including them in a change.
Yeah. And just think about the word adoption, right? Adoption means you own something. That's what we're really after, right? And so starting out the box, the three factors that make user adoption so difficult is new tech. Usually, along with new tech comes a major change in legacy business processes. And people just don't want to change from a process that works for them and they've been using for years. So, why are we changing? What we have is fine. Yep. And then the benefits of the change are usually not recognized immediately. It's something that's going to come further down the road from a time perspective. So again, the question comes in, I don't see the need to adopt a new way when it's not doing anything different than what we had before, right? And then the third one, and I know, Corinne, you can chime in on this one because it's I know it's the favorite one amongst change management people. Out of the box, our first reaction as humans is to resist change, right? I mean, it's in our nature. We're wired that way. And so just that alone is something that needs to be overcome through that process, overcome that process.
And I think change management in that regard of just accepting that human nature is to resist change as the truth is really, to me, one of the gateways to delivering really effective and really helpful change management. Because if you as a change manager or someone who is owning this part of a process can really internalize, this is going to be hard, and it's going to be hard for the people who this ultimately is meant to help. Hopefully that will instill some form of empathy in you to say, okay, I know what information I need to share with them, but what information is going to matter to those people, because those can often be two very, very different things. And so, doing that full scoping of this is the data and this is the knowledge I know I need to share, but also taking that time to say, okay, really going native into that end user experience of, okay, if I'm the person that's now going to be operating this thing once the deployment is done, what's going to make them feel better about the adjustment? What are their concerns about leaving the comfy place that they are in general? And making sure that you're answering those questions, you're drawing those lines in a very clear way to make the change less frightening or less stressful, irritating, fill in the blank adjective. Like, the goal for change managers should be to make the chaos of change as low as possible. Change is going to be chaos regardless. It's a mitigation strategy. And the more that you can put yourself in the shoes of the other folks, the more beneficial the whole process becomes. And also the better you become as a change manager, because you get to understand different personas, different priorities, and get out of the way of your own implicit bias, because again, we are human and we all have them.
So I think our next slide, we're gonna look at how we can overcome, how we can institute change management, overcome some of those factors.
Yep. Great. So, really, I think what's really important is making sure that there are sponsors at every single level, and not just people that are saying, yes, this is a great idea, and then going off and doing their own thing. They need to really show up. So that means people who are in executive positions that are going to understand that they can talk the talk, but they are also required to walk the walk. This is very similar to do as I say, not as I do. Leaders have to do both of those things and really model the behavior that they're expecting of their people in order for this to really be successful. I wish that there were easier ways for change management to happen, but modeled behavior is truly crucial. If you are seeing a different behavior happening, but you're being told that you've got to do something totally brand new, it's going to make you frustrated. It's going to make you angry. And then that sort of gets in the way of that ownership and adoption that we're really trying to chase for.
And Corinne, I'll tell you, the several change management and tech assignments that I've worked on, the change management team that came in, the first question they asked when they walk in the door, who's the executive sponsors?
Yep.
It's paramount. If you don't start off with that, then it's not going to work.
Yeah. There's a little bit of a, if those people don't exist, it's a little bit of a you and what army are going to make me do this. And so, there's a lot that is on the line with how good of an executive, how vocal of a sponsor you have, how engaged of a sponsor you have. And also, going into the rest of the list, being very transparent about what exercises for change management are happening. Again, like I had said earlier, people absorb information very, very differently. Some people might be keeping track of things on Slack, or some people might be more diligent about keeping up with their emails, or, the company all hands meetings and things like that. There are a lot of different channels through which people get information. Some just stick with people in different ways. I happen to be a better auditory learner than I am a reading learner. So that works for me. Me showing up and listening in a town hall and then following up in questions there is really the forum where, if I am being subjected to a change management process, that's where I'm going to get the most resonant information. Ray, on the other hand, might do better with getting everything in written form and really internalizing it that way. So it's really important to call out through a change management process. These are all the different ways that we're going to be hitting you with knowledge. And, it's a little bit of a create your own adventure. We're going to be sharing the information equally. So it's not like one forum or one mode is going to be more powerful than the other, but you get to choose your own adventure of, yes, I see the email go through. I'll refer to that later if I need more clarity, but I'm just going to stick with the town hall or, listen to like the quick video clip from our CEO or something like that. Allowing people to mix and match also allows them to feel like they have more autonomy through the change than if you were to just be like, this is the town hall, you're mandated to be there, you're also mandated to read this email, things like that. So everyone on this call, I know we've all experienced those feelings of being forced into doing things out of just simple requirement. Giving people sort of an a la carte way of getting from point A to point B might seem relatively insignificant, but it actually has a lot of power because it allows people to engage with information on their own time or in their own way. And, that is something that should never be squandered. Anything else on this slide, Ray, or you want to hop to the next?
I want to tap into the resource and funds dedicated for it for a bit. One of the things, and you really touched on it on your first slide, is the skills necessary to be able to do change management properly. I've been with several large organizations, and there is a tendency that the communications department tends to be the leader of change management when you bring it up to your organizations.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that they are definitely a part of the plan and a great sponsor of the plan. But as far as them leading the process, it's, as I said earlier, it's a science.
Yep.
It needs to be led by someone who really knows the processes themselves.
Yeah. I think that's exactly right. And to use another analogy, like it would be the equivalent of asking your general practitioner to do neurosurgery.
It's a great analogy.
Both doctors can help, like write you a prescription if you've got a cold or you've got a sinus infection, but only one of them can do like the super detailed surgery. So, really think about it as this is a really niche specialty that comms can be a feeder for, but they are not one and the same. And a lot of the reasoning, at least from a corporate perspective, is communications at organizations is they work on behalf of the messaging for the company. So their customer is the organization, not the employee. And that, like, there is nothing bad with that. That is the duty of that sphere within organizations. But that means that some people will struggle a little bit more to shift gears to say, I'm representing and I'm working for the end user. So it's a very, there is a mindset shift that needs to happen within comms even to make this stuff happen successfully as well.
Yeah. So if you get kicked to your communications department when you ask for change management, I challenge you to push back a little bit and say you actually need a resource that is trained in that process. So
Agreed. Yeah, and I think, as we've been saying, like that frequent, transparent communication, to me, those are the repetition and the regularity. So let's just say you've got a 3-month project that's happening. There's a lot of value in saying you're going to hear from us via email every Monday at 3 p.m. and just send out an update email, because people will get comfortable and become reliant upon those updates because it's consistent. And so there is a consistency and a presence that matters through this whole process. If you go dark for too long, they'll wonder what's happening. They'll wonder if something's changed. So even if there aren't any updates, that repetitiveness actually pays off in terms of having people stay engaged. And again, like using those the variety of channels, all that kind of stuff. but the regularity is, I think, one of the most key things, because it becomes sort of like the lighthouse that people are sort of swimming toward. I'm all full of analogies today. And then, figuring out what are ways that you can involve the end users, those employees, through this process, rather than them just being the recipients of all of this information. I think anyone that's done any change management exercise is familiar with the phrase change champion. I appreciate what that role is. I think that a lot of onus is put on those folks to be spokespeople for a change. I would encourage and invite you all to, as you consider how to move this thing through, don't rely on just a hand selection of a few of your all-star people or people who are very well connected through your teams. Figure out a way that you can, engage the masses. So whether it's, picking on people, like inviting people randomly to share how their change journey's been going, ask them to own a piece of the change process and, really see that part through. There are, very similarly to the ways in which people internalize information, there are a lot of different ways to skin the cat, a lot of different ways for people to understand how they can be involved rather than just waiting for it to be deployed and done. And those are always going to be changes that are more successful because there are owners of the change, not just the product at the end of the deployment.
Right.
Okay, on to the next.
We're running a little bit short on time, so I'm going to speed through this pretty quickly. So you can really kind of summarize, basically what we both said. From a return on the investment for change management, again, from the people perspective, it's faster adoption of the technology, higher utilization. They're higher in proficiency when they start using the product instead of learning it as you go, so you get the benefits of the product a lot faster. Cost avoidance. If you recall my example before, I've got a client who's having to engage us because of a failed deployment. So those costs could have been avoided if they would have had change management in place in the beginning. Risk mitigation. I will tell you, individuals, the project, the organization, all are at risk when change is not managed correctly. The thing that comes to mind for the most part, and I think Corinne touched on it earlier, when people don't adopt or they don't follow the line, a lot of times what will happen is disciplinary action, could be dismissal. They don't think the person's the problem. If there's proper change management in place, it tends to minimize that risk. I'm not saying it's going to solve it totally. You may have individuals that no matter what you do, they're not going to be in step with where the change is going, but it would definitely minimize the risk of that happening. Benefits realization insurance, that's just ensuring that the company recognizes the benefits of the technology that they've invested in. Right? They spent a lot of money to get the new technology, and to not recognize the benefits is just a wasted cost.
Yep.
And then the last item is obviously the probability of meeting the objectives of the project on budget, on schedule, and again, recognizing those benefits.
Great.
So I think we have another quick poll.
Yep. So one last poll, and really this is just, we're sort of treating this as a pre and post success story of how much more likely are you all to consider change management regardless of, for as many of your deployments as possible. Again, the way that you map out a change management scope for a very small deployment is not going to be the same as one that is a mega transformation, but there are still a lot of principles that you could implement regardless of the scale of the project. So hand it over to Alex again very quickly for a quick poll, and then we'll get you out of here.
Great. Yep. It looks like you found the poll in your chat box. So I guess in addition, we would love to hear from you too. If you just take a quick minute, how many of you have dedicated change management resources? As Corinne mentioned, it is that specialized skill. Everyone has different resources within their organizations. So looks like people are sold. Yes, for all tech initiatives or larger initiatives, a combination of.
Amazing.
Great.
Awesome.
Great. Corinne and Ray, thank you so much for this fantastic information. Engagement is key. Transparency is critical. It's so much more than communication. These are great, just the tip of the iceberg for the skills for effective change management. So,
absolutely.
We'll send out a copy of the presentation as well as your contact information for those who have joined us today or watching online. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right. Thanks all.
Bye-bye.
Happy holidays.
Thanks
Happy
all.
New Year.
Merry Christmas, yeah.